issues, we just can't get it.
Yep.
But they need to win their lanes, they need to get their own advantages, and then they need to come together as a team.
Well, it's going to be tough because C9 have been on a bit of a tear recently, but we'll start off here with Game 1's draft. C9 on the blue side for the first one. NRG hanging out over on the red. Twitch banned away from OQ. I like the respect there. Jax will follow away from Quas. And Azir banned from NRG. Champion you definitely want to keep out of Jensen's hands.
Absolutely. And Jensen, even though he plays a lot of different champions, does seem like he's trending towards a big three. He's played Azir and Victor, and then yesterday he pulled out Cassiopeia in 2 games. And I feel like those champs all kind of fit a very similar archetype. This is incredibly similar, actually, to the champion pool in the spring of 2015 as they were going towards the first MSI. It's just a bunch of long-range, high-damage mid laners that can end up taking over games through just insane late-game damage. And Jensen's been spectacular at all 3 of those champions.
Certainly has. Just a player that continues to grow in strength here in North America. As Ash actually banned away from Sneaky, I guess they call it the Pentakill highlight. NRG wanting to make sure that doesn't go over to Cloud9, and in general, a smart take away from Sneaky, who's been looking just great on that champion.
Ash and Jhin have been 2 champions that have actually been really big for Sneaky in their ability to, A, kind of take over games occasionally, but B, also offer some fairly long-range initiation and utility. So I understand the Ash ban, although I don't think that necessarily takes Sneaky's options away from him, as Jhin, surprisingly enough, has been the most picked champion in the AD carry role across the 4 major regions, not counting Taiwan, which would be the 5th major region, this week.
Still impressive, but Rise banned from C9. NRG will burn Rek'Sai away from Meteos, and that's an easy first pick, Vladimir. We talk about the big 2 for Jensen. It's usually because this champion's banned.
Exactly. It's the big 4, in all honesty, but you just can't count it if you never see it. As far as like unbanned pick rate, you can see Vladimir's pick rate's only 20%. That's because he's banned 70% of the time. And he's almost always first picked if he makes it through. So whether or not NRG was trying to bait them into that, who knows? We do know that Jensen will have Vladimir.
Yep, and we've seen many a bait of Vladimir picks. I don't think it's worked out for any team so far, but
interestingly enough, 47% win rate in the 17 games he's been in the North American LCS. I mean, a lot of that happens just because like literally any team will pick him first. So sometimes that's the weaker team, sometimes that's the stronger team.
Yep, sometimes it goes top lane. All crazy, all amounts of crazy things could happen. As Trundle there for the top lane for Quas, most likely. And there's Karma, either a flex for mid or support.
Yep, 2 pretty solid picks though for NRG after giving Vladimir through. Fair bit of power picks obviously have gone through this game because the bans were fairly targeted. I'd say with Twitch, Jax, and Ash being the most targeted of the bans. So that's one of the reasons we got these fairly high-priority champions through into the pick phase.
We'll see what C9 take for themselves here. They've already got Vlad, so pretty good start to any draft. 15 seconds to lock down picks 2 and 3. Don't have too much information. NRG doing a good job of hiding kind of what they want to do with their initial picks at least.
Yeah, for sure. And C9 taking a long time to get these locked in. They go with a more utility-focused bottom lane here with Sivir and Braum. That's not going to be the strongest thing in lane. Also have to note we do have Smoothie in, so this actually makes it'll be exactly 10 games Bunny has played and exactly 10 games Smoothie has played. They're keeping this real even.
Yep. I mean,
expect Bunny to sub in next game, but specifically on the Braum here, not a very strong laning phase, so I would say expect a lane swap.
Yep, and that's been certainly something that Cloud9 have shown they can do as well. And Sneaky seems like continuing to stick with those utility carries. Ash banned away, straight back to Sivir. Kind of surprised to not see the Jhin, but I guess it just fits the comp a little more. With a Vlad, I can kind of see wanting to support that with a Sivir.
Yeah, I also think partially because the Karma's picked away. They've played 1 Nami game. You know, it's pretty much going with a Bard or they go for a melee support. And without Bunny Fufu in there, their only 2 Thresh games they've played have been with Bunny, so it makes sense they would go with the Braum, go for the utility.
There's Caitlyn for OQ and GBM back on the Anivia train. He's played actually a surprising amount of Anivia, specifically in this matchup, and I feel like every time we've seen this, we get told it's a counter pick, and it just doesn't quite work out the way you want it to, because Vladimir is just such a powerful champion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it can split the lane with him, but I think once you get to the teamfight phase, Vladimir definitely starts to take over a little bit. 4 times in a row last week, GBM did go for Anivia. The only game he didn't play Anivia, he was playing Ziggs. I think either Anivia was picked away or banned or something like that. He's very happy with that choice.
And he does seem to like his kind of wave clear mages. He's been playing a lot of these sort of farm up and trying to carry that late game. His damage numbers are actually great, but again, it needs to be a consistent thing for NRG to really come together as a team, and we'll see what Cloud9 do to finish off this draft.
Exactly. This will solidify where we're seeing the Vladimir. We're thinking mid lane, so it's most likely a top lane pick and a jungle pick with the Rek'Sai banned. But no junglers actually taken by the other side. We're most likely to see a Kindred here.
Yep.
And with that Lissandra, that actually confuses everyone because they can easily swap Vladimir and Lissandra between both lanes.
I like it. Lissandra, a pick that's actually seen some bans recently. Definitely a champion a lot of teams are picking up both in top and mid lane. Kindred, though, the junglers that are still playing her tend to go pretty crazy.
Yep.
So not been the most popular champion, but we've seen what even Smithy's been doing on it recently. Meteos, no slouch on Kindred either.
Exactly. It's not like Kindred is the free win, but it is definitely rewarding for players who can snowball on it and catch a lot of marks throughout the map. Really interesting how NRG decided to wait all the way until the end to get Santorin's jungle. He's had a pretty good split, actually. I think his Nidalee is quite strong. It's just a matter of whether they think Nidalee fits in with his team. They'd have a very nice poke composition if they go jungle Nidalee.
Yep, kind of open here. We've seen his Elise look good as well, which was a reasonable counter pick into Kindred. Players seem to like that matchup, so maybe he goes for that. Yeah,
you can chain the CC onto Kindred to prevent the Lamb's Respite fairly frequently. Xmithy, I think, has been the most successful in that matchup as the Elise. But Santorin has played plenty of Elise in previous splits. Yep. A little bit of Elise recently, once against TSM and yesterday against Phoenix 1.
Yep, looked pretty good again. Santorin's kind of been the bright spot of the team in a lot of different ways. We'll see if he can get it done early here, because Cloud9 are a team that, when they start winning, they tend not to let go of that lead. You said you probably expect the lane swap given the early competition, but as soon as we break up apart into that mid game, Cloud9 tend to just keep running with the ball.
That'll be the really interesting thing, especially in their games against Envy. They were able to snowball a lot of those leads, whereas in some previous weeks it had been a little bit struggling, and that's why they're picking these compositions that have so much initiation. The Lissandra plus the Sivir is a lot, and I think they get some of the inherent tankiness that they'd be lacking with the Lissandra top lane by having the Vladimir mid lane, who can be a little bit tankier. So overall, I like this composition. It also doesn't give great targets for Quas to ult on Trundle, which is a side benefit of having the Lissandra top lane. So I'm really excited to see how these two top compositions clash up against each other in game.
Yep, Coach is going to shake hands. I think both teams are pretty happy with their early drafts, but let us know which team you think will kill the Nexus first. Tweet using that hashtag C9win or the hashtag NRG win to make your predictions. NRG looking down to that comp. I just feel like, again, they're going to say, you know what, chill out for 20 minutes. We're going to farm up. We got Caitlyn, we got Anivia. See if they can't take a late game team fight or two. But that is a dangerous proposition versus a continued aggressive C9.
Exactly, especially with the Sivir and the Vladimir. I feel like those two champions scale insanely well, too. So this game is something where both teams will have to show a little bit of aggression, I feel like, to get things done. And it will test NRG's communication because C9 has played fairly in your face this whole split.
Certainly have. And we're on to Summoner's Rift for Game 1 between Cloud9 and NRG. Players will make their way out of the fountains. We'll see if we do have that lane swap you mentioned there. That was maybe an option for Cloud9 in Champ Select. But right now, everyone's just going to fan out, get that early vision down, and make those early moves. Impact, you can see, already running up towards that top side. C9 sticking together as 3. Jensen actually just behind his teammates. Going to move through this bottom lane Tribush.
Yeah, we'll get to see if NRG decide to do something cute here. It basically just feels like they're putting up some defensive wards, which would make you expect a counter invade. C9, though, not doing a really strong invade to get total certainty on this lane swap. Although, I will say C9 get better wards out, so that was a very low risk yet successful invade for Cloud9.
Yep, got that nice little ward on the intersection between Grump and Blue Buff. NRG, though, just going to move in and put down the exact same ward. So Impact, I think, got spotted. Maybe just got seen there, but the teams do want to swap. They're going to have to try and make their move pretty soon.
Exactly, and these aren't necessarily lane swap wards as much as they are jungle start wards, which will then be another way of inferring the information, but it's not the super aggressive place where you get the ward at the exit to the team's base in a side lane. It's the much more conservative choices, which will make it difficult to correctly call where the dual lane goes.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of, I almost want to say soft lane swaps, where teams just sort of get their shallow wards down and then see what happens. This time, though, Sneaky and Smoothie will actually get spotted. They are going to have inverted standard lanes this time as they are going to start that Grump.
Yeah, this is favorable for NRG, I would have to say. Kiwi Kid and LQ can take this fairly easily. The headshots from the brush are great for Caitlyn when doing a camp. The stun for Braum onto Gromp is pretty good as well, but I definitely think that is favor NRG as they now have more poke coming into this top lane with Karma, who gets ultimate at level 1.
Well, that's pretty good.
That's fun.
Sneaky eats a Q straight to the face. As you can see, early lane push going to be started here by NRG. We'll see if those standard lanes do actually reap some early benefits. Seems like in the matchup they should have the advantage. We'll see if they can convert that with their play.
Well, exactly. It's also been one of the flaws of OQ and Kiwi Kids' game is they just don't seem to have that much synergy in lane yet. So,
and despite the two supports, I feel like Sneaky's building up rapport with both of his supports, actually.
Really feels like it.
Talk about Smoothie being maybe the stronger laner, but certainly Bunny has shown good moments as well. Right now, though, he's playing Sivir. He's going to have to chill out for a bit versus his Caitlyn and just try and farm these waves back as best he can as Smoothie does ding level 2.
Yeah. Try and lose as few CS as possible. What's interesting, though, is when you have these inverted standard lanes, it makes the early ganks real possible. This will be all about whether Santorin can nail Impact before he can take his claw.
Impact's out. There's the pillar. Oh, Cocoon! Whoa! Right idea, but it's just not quite hitting its target.
Yeah, I think even if that hits, Impact will live because the stun from Santorin's Cocoon would have still been in turret range, so I don't think he would have followed that up. I do like how Impact actually maybe read that play a little bit because he took his claw before it was at max range, and Santorin threw it out at the max range claw. So, bit of a mind game there. Santorin tried for the prediction, nearly worked. Now Meteos is trying to match ganks on the other side. This should be rather predictable for OQ and Kiwi Kid, but let's see if they can avoid it.
Well, Meteos going to move in. He's got the double buff, so this is a problem. OQ going to be the target. There's a flash instantly out. Now Karma going to flash out from under that wrong Q. Instantly gets out there.
Yeah. He draws a double flash with essentially walk-up gank.
Good bit of pressure. Ooh, Quas. Nice damage there onto Impact, but Impact should be just fine for now. You can see that Twitter vote. C9 fans certainly making their voices heard here for game number 1. See if NRG can maybe silence a few here for the first. As Jensen and GBM just hanging out, having a bit of fun, but this should be pretty quiet for the first 10 to 15 minutes.
Absolutely, and Meteos now going for his mark. Smoothie going to help him. This would be whether Santorin will try and steal it. Can't quite get there. With double flashes burn in NRG's lane, I think that really stops him from being able to be too aggressive. Maybe we'll see a return gank from Meteos, but really he's done all he has to for that lane already.
Yep, seems like he's just relieved pressure, which is all he needs to do. Going to go back and farm into his bottom side of the jungle. Santorin again looking pretty far forward for a gank here. Jensen the target, stun from GBM. And Jensen playing up. He wants that last CS, but it might cost him.
Yeah.
Ooh, wall just barely missing. And Santorin's already used the Cocoon. He's going to follow in, though. Might look for a dive, but Jensen somehow magics his way out of that.
Yeah, good discipline on him to recognize that Santorin wouldn't have the burst and doesn't have to burn a summoner. I was expecting a flash after a Sanguine Pool, actually, but he'll be just completely fine. Even he doesn't even go back to base.
Nope. Vladimir Doran Shield got some Q on the transfusion.
And it's an early game Anivia with no Ignite, so as long as he trusts himself to not get caught by an Anivia stun, he'll be okay.
Put a ward down now as well, so it maybe feels a bit safe, but certainly aggressive from Jensen. Sort of what we've come to expect from his laning. As you can see, Smoothie just holding that wave. Looks like Sneaky's following up just fine as Santorin. Once again, a visit to the bottom line, this time through the brush.
Yeah, Santorin definitely pressing hard for some early game ganks. It's one of the reasons you pick Elise is because at level 3 you get 6 spells essentially, so you want to take as much advantage of that early strength as possible. And the lane is pushed up to a place where he would be able to sneak in the brush, but I feel like this is a little bit telegraphed by Quas. He takes so much harass while doing that, and he gives no reason for Impact to extend into threat range. So more wasted time for Santorin. The wave just wasn't quite in the right place, and Quas kind of gave it away.
And Elise can brute force some ganks, but maybe trying a little too hard on these initial plays for Santorin. Impact, good discipline again, just kind of hangs out, continues to farm that wave. Quas has gone back. He's got a Spectre's Cal now, and likely going to burn that TP to bottom lane. GBM actually going to burn TP into mid, so he's got that tier already, going to start stacking that up as Meteos takes a visit here towards his second mark. It's actually NRG's Raptor camp. He's going to look to take away.
He really wants to go for this one, although this is actually really dangerous. GBM's teleported back to mid lane, and he's trying to take this with basically his whole team in base. So he gets away with it
this time.
For now.
Ooh, GBM going to follow in, but
wow,
not quite in range for a wall. Yeah, very aggressive play from Meteos. Kind of knew where Santorin was, but 1v1 versus Anivia probably not going to go that well.
His knowledge of Santorin, though, was total guesswork, because they never actually saw him on the map. They just saw that Quas was playing over the aggressive, and maybe Impact said, hey, I think Elise's bottom lane. I mean, Meteos didn't even have a deep ward to know where Santorin was. That was so greedy.
Yep.
And if he was getting killed, we would be trashing him right now for going for that. But he does get away with it in this instance, and now he's stronger on Kindred.
Well, looking good so far. 2 early marks from Meteos' slightly reckless play, but certainly bold. Looks like Hextech Revolver there for Jensen in the mid lane, so it could be Protobelt first. So a little bit of pro development yesterday from some junglers. Excited to see it here on Vlad potentially.
Yeah, and I think with Anivia going to tier first for GBM, he's going to have a little bit of kill pressure, actually, if he wants to go for it and gets any damage assistance from Meteos' Kindred. So I do not disagree with that play.
Kindred up here, though, in the top side of the map. Once again, looking for that return gank. Flashes almost back up, so good timing here for Meteos. But it looks like Okyu's just going to play back here. Does not want to overextend into a potential trap.
Yeah, it'll really be about how much Okyu and Kiwi Kid are looking to punish. I feel like this lane has been basically a farm off, which is super favorable for Cloud9, and it actually prompts him to go aggressive.
He gives it away, but the flash forward with the Winter's Bite might be enough. The stun will land onto Okyu. The damage is there. Flashes out of the way. Sneaky though flashes forward. He gets the last auto for first blood.
Wow, and Okyu's flash came up as that gank was happening. That was incredibly tight timing right there. As Cloud9 went, I almost guarantee you they had timed that flash in chat as best as they could, and they get it just at the last second because essentially they got enough damage off before it could flash away that it made the turret dive worth it. They do burn all of their flashes to get it, but the kill is successful. Yeah, notice how there's just a small amount of cooldown left on Okyu's flash. So Smoothie flashes over the minion wave, lands the Braum Q. Meteos able to proc it, which allows Sneaky to catch up, and then Sneaky flashes and heals, so he'd be in range for that last auto attack. Well, and another mark.
Yep.
For Meteos. He'd also had marked Okyu for that, so he's at 4.
Oh, Impact! Ult himself! I'm not sure it's going to save him. The wall's there, and Santorin dives under the turret for a kill.
Yeah, and this is something we actually haven't gotten a big chance to talk about, but it is indicative of Cloud9's play throughout this split. They kind of just leave Impact to do him, just leave him.
Yep.
Fend for yourself, Impact,
Stranded
is kind of what they say. And most of the time he's able to do it, but in the current competitive landscape, like, either he gives up a bunch of farm, or he puts himself at risk of dying. The rest of Cloud9 is pretty good. Maybe that's why they have Impact, because a lot of times he's good enough to outplay those situations. But I think it's definitely something teams can punish. As we've seen Impact have a couple of really bad games. That was a gank where they left him out to dry. He didn't have deep wards, and he actually should have backed away, but didn't want to.
Yep, nice visit again for Santorin. This time it works. With a bit of help from GBM, does get the tower dive kill. So Trundle going to go down for 1. Sorry, Lissandra going to go down for 1, as Elise picks up that kill. Looks like Meteos continuing to counter jungle. Got that mark on the left side. Scuttercrab now going to take away the red buff. Effectively trading with Santorin, who did steal it with that top lane play earlier. Cloud9 to a decent start here, but NRG with that kill. Pretty much catching right back up in gold. So nothing too crazy just yet as everyone's kind of building up towards that first item.
Yeah, I do have to say, Meteos is off to a great start. Having 4 marks of the Kindred at essentially 8.5 minutes is what he did, is almost unheard of. So he will continue to try and get that. Karma is his next mark, and with how aggressive he's been about running after marks in the jungle, like, expect him to do an aggressive invade when he sees the next one in there.
Yep, he's level 8 now, so it has the ulti for a potential dive as well. Santorin going to get spotted here, but Kiwi Kid with some coverage. Going to clear that pink ward safely out of the way. Protobelt also finished now for Jensen's. Pretty cheap item on top of everything else, so maybe can apply a bit more pressure now. Right now, though, it's just clearing out the farm here under this turret. And GBM also happily farming away. Looks like they're pretty even on CS. Jensen with a bit of a lead, but again, these two have really just been farming up a storm. Yeah,
GBM actually might be skipping Roa in his Anivia build. There was some minor Roa nerfs in the last patch, so he could just be going for Morel and Omicron and a Seraph. So it'll make him much squishier than he would be normally, which will be, I think, really dangerous against Vladimir, who could basically egg him if he just uses a full spell rotation. So GBM playing it very risky.
And Meteos looking for a visit here onto the Rift Herald, perhaps. Actually, maybe just taking that Scuttercrab instead. Is Santorin going to do the same here around the Drake? There is a Mountain Drake up for grabs, but no teams have swapped their duo lanes back towards that bottom half of the map just yet. Looks like Meteos really chasing these marks.
Really wants Kiwi Kid. I mean, they have the ward in this brush, so they'd have to. They're going to get spotted here. At the very least, they're going to get a lot of pressure on this turret because it forces a response from Santorin, and they're already ahead in this lane.
Could be dangerous, though. 2 teleports on the other side of the map for NRG, so if they want to respond to this, they can. But right now, Sneak is just taking pot shots at the turret. Jensen was rotating up as well. Good block on the Q there from Smoothie as he puts up the door. And Meteos, once again, back to counter jungling. But Santorin with the smite, able to keep that camp for himself. Yeah, it's team counter jungling, though. Jensen is already pushed up to help him make that invade safer. So unlike some of the earlier bolder invades by Meteos, he's actually getting some assistance from his team in these later invades. And this is Cloud9 pulling ahead
Even in some matchups where they shouldn't necessarily. Like the sneaky smoothie matchup out CSing OQ and Kiwi Kid. Obviously, they've gotten help from Meteos, but that's not one of those things that you expect from the pick and ban phase.
Yeah, feels like jungle's up, mid lane's up, and everything else is even for Cloud9 as Meteos tumbles over the back of the Drake pit, and he's going to just solo this away. He's so strong on Kindred right now.
And this is actually really cute for a number of reasons. A, Mountain Drake is the slowest attacking dragon, so it's the easiest to solo. Meteos jumps over the back of the pit. Also, because he's been so aggressive at achieving his mark had just spawned in NRG's jungle, so instead of them worrying about Dragon, they were worried about Meteos going for the Drake. Everyone actually funneled towards that. Like, GBM was up there, Santorin is waiting. Like, they're waiting for him, like, he's going to come for this. We're going to wait for him. But he's one step ahead of the game, actually, and he doesn't go for it.
Yep, nice little mind game. Finishes jungle and chat up as well. In fact, both junglers have, so early power there, but so many marks for this Kindred. Meteos with 60 CS to 42 as Jensen going to maybe steal away this blue buff with a bit of help from his friends. Now he's in trouble, though. Gets pillared up. The Cocoon's going to land in from Santorin. They're going to dive in onto Jensen, who's going to sanguine pull out of the way. But Impact looking for the counter engage. Finds Quas there. Stares him up and does stun him there with the Frozen Tomb. And Impact gets himself a kill as they're still on for the blue buff.
Yep, through the Trundle ultimate. But we have to remember, there's really no targets to steal resistances from for Quas. And the ultimate's also not as great earlier on in the game. So that was a really nice play by Cloud9. Just really bursting whoever was in front. Quas hadn't built up his tank stats yet. And another good play by Meteos and the rest of Cloud9.
And again, the continued aggressive counter juggling is just here. Jensen gets caught, but he turns it around.
Yeah, and with the Proto Belt, he doesn't even actually have to ultimate here, which is the crazy part. Impact goes in. GBM had used his cooldowns prior, doesn't even land a stun, and Santorin wasn't in a position to follow up, so even though NRG was there first, they were approaching from different angles, whereas C9 were all one cohesive force, and that really allowed them to take down Quas.
It does feel like Meteos, even though he's playing aggressively, the rest of his team finally behind him is really letting them jump out to a decent early lead here. They're almost 1,500 gold up, which at 14 minutes isn't too bad, and they've got pretty much a free Drake out of the deal as well after Meteos took away that mountain. So things looking up, but we might be finally swapping things back as Sneaky and Smoothie actually will take this turret. An early swap from NRG is going to cost them a turret. We'll see if they can get a trade as Impact.
Yeah.
Getting dove by Quas, gonna bail.
Impact is low on mana. I wonder if he's going to be greedy and try and defend this if he teleported back in, but it's highly unlikely. 14 minutes in, BF Sword Caitlyn, that turret's going down. The question now will be whether Impact actually teleports top lane to extend this push.
Yep, we're actually going to look for a trade here potentially.
Cloud9 will be actually way ahead in tempo. They're already halfway through the second turret. So this could very easily turn into a game of chicken, especially if Meteos goes up to help with this push. They could potentially get an inhibitor turret if this trade extends.
Jensen Proto Belts in, does get the Hemoplague down after GBM. That might pop the
him.
egg. It does.
Oh, Meteos, he wants the kill.
Oh my god, he's going to go in for it. GBM's egg, it's in trouble. He's got the Lamb's Respite there. Gonna shoot him down. Meteos gets it.
Aggressive play right there from Meteos and Jensen, and that's just what we talked about with GBM's greedy build. Skipping the Rod of Ages, rushing the Morellonomicon. The turret ends up getting traded on the bottom side, but that's still just a trade. And that's another thing about building health or tank stats on Anivia. You essentially get it twice. So when you're easier to egg, it's also easier for your egg to die. And because Meteos is so fed early on, because Jensen can pop the egg easily, they're able to run right in the turret range and finish him off, which is just very smart and calculated from Cloud9 as a whole.
Yep, almost took the mid-outer as well. So C9, knowing that a tower trade was likely on the way, try to break that mid-section. Almost did it. GBM, though, will return. Morellonomicon finish. Does have his TP up if he needs to get anywhere in a hurry. But Cloud9, again, still playing up and fast here in this particular one. Sneaky really starting to shove out these minion waves with the Essence Reaver and the Zeal. And Impact, ooh, does get spotted. Kiwi Kid going to keep him out.
They were trying to prep a dive. Impact really looking to play aggressively and really trying to push energy outside of their jungle. Everything that needs to be going right for Cloud9 right now is going right. Even if this gold lead is only 2,000, Sneaky is more farmed than the Caitlyn, even though they laned against each other. Jensen is significantly ahead on GBM's Anivia, even though technically GBM would have gotten the counter pick. And then even though Impact did suffer a casualty to an early gank, he's still able to go around and make plays because he's not starved by any means on the Lysandra. Not to mention Meteos is stacking up on Kindred. So everything actually going very well for Cloud9 right now. It's just a question of whether or not they can extend this.
Well, we'll have to see. Because Sneaky is trying to push him for this turret, but OQ and Kiwi Kid with enough wave clear able to take that out. Tara's low, but Impact not there for the dive. Does mean it's protected for now. Jensen once again gets himself another blue buff. Just going to waddle back to mid lane here and try and keep this turret up for as long as possible.
Yeah. one of the updates in the midseason was to make blue buff give you some bonus ability power, so it's a little bit more justifiable, aside from just the cooldown reduction, to take it on someone like Vladimir, who doesn't have mana.
OQ, though, trimming these waves. Just going to shoot him down as Meteos, playing up and aggressive. I don't know exactly what's happening in that build, but I'm excited, because I see a Phage and a Dagger.
It's going to be a Trinity Force. Meteos has actually done Trinity Force on Kindred. I've talked to him about it. He likes it as a pseudo-defensive item, as well as just a quick burst of damage. You still get the Trinity Force proc, you still get the move speed, but it also makes you a little bit harder to burst, which I think is what he's going to want in this matchup against Elise, since the counterplay from Elise is to burst before he can cast Lamb's Respite. And he says it just gives him a little bit of freedom in being able to take hits and get away. He likes playing more aggressively with the extra health pool.
I mean, feels like he hasn't really changed over the years as Meteos gets a nice mark, but now he's in trouble. Has to get himself out over the wall. Does flash into the Rift Herald pit, but does have to expend the summoner there as Jensen. Sanguine Pools going to try and take this mid lane turret. Is going to be successful here. GBM looks like he got chunked out.
He's so quick with those marks as well. That's yet another one secured. 5 marks for Meteos. He's changed his decision from trying to mark Kiwi Kid to marking Santorin, which is an interesting choice if he's going to be going so aggressively. He's like, not only am I going to try and invade you, if you try and stop me, I have marked you. So I will again have the upper hand.
It's all about value. Wants that 2-for-1. This is blue buff also going to go over to Cloud9, continuing the strong jungle control in these early stages. Santorin, though, trying to keep them out. Blue buff going to go over.
Jeez.
Meteos gets it.
Interesting how he's actually burned his smite on the blue. It'll be up in 15 seconds. He had 2 full charges there, but if they go straight to Dragon, they actually have to wait for his smite to come back up, and they're not doing that, so he doesn't have smite right now because of the blue steal, and they have to pull off Dragon.
Yep, you can see just trying to buy a bit more time, but it's going to reset and start regenerating health. Maybe a fight, actually.
Now he's got smite. Time to go back at it.
Hey, all planned here is Impact running interference on the left-hand side, and Cloud9 get themselves an easy Ocean Drake for their second. Just feels like, again, they're in complete control. That goal lead actually starting to grow now as well. C9 are not putting the brakes on at all.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And NRG also not making any plays. This is kind of exactly what we talked about in the pregame. C9 has been steadily improving their ability to extend goal leads, and NRG hasn't been able to fix their problems of not really making plays when they start falling behind. They need to be, at least with their communication issues, a team that is able to win lanes handily, and that hasn't been the case. OQ lost lane, GBM lost lane. And even though Quas got some assistance from Santorin, he's not ahead of Impact either.
No, Impact just fine actually right now with the early items out. Quas slowly developing into a split push threat. Spirit Visage done. Looks like the Hydra's on the way next. Should be that Titanic Hydra for extra tankiness. Eventually, Quas should be able to get some damage done in a 1-4 style split push, but
correct.
Feels like Cloud9 not really going to let the game get to that point.
It actually takes a really long time for the Trundle to start outscaling Lysandra, because Lysandra's burst and sustained damage is highly underrated. You get an incredibly low cooldown on your Q, so in late game 1v1s against tanks, you can actually do a lot of kiting around against a Trundle, and the Trundle has to be very actually skillful in order and far ahead in order to beat you in that duel.
I like the mind game there from Cloud9. It's coming up. Kiwi Kid actually gets tagged. Last order there for the start. Meteos dives in and Sneaky gets an easy one. No Impact flashes in. They do tag OQ. They're going to move forward for it, but the TP is in from NRG. Jensen, though, straight into the backlines with a Hemo Plague and the Protover. He gets one and absolutely destroys as Quas getting stunned up. He's going to have to bail out as well. Jensen still doing damage. Burst down onto GBM. Cloud9 exploding NRG's jungle.
Oh my god, and GBM gets so low as well. Jensen just goes all in. Proto Belt Flash Ghost. You're not getting away from that. And OQ did not get away from that. He completely got killed out. Everyone on Cloud9 was very free to deal damage. And if it wasn't but 20 minutes in, I'd expect Baron to already be dead. They do have Mountain Drake, though, and they pushed them back, so they're going for it.
Yeah, they are. Cloud9, they already threatened it before, but that threat was very real. They've cleaned out the vision. They've had the control.
Yeah, they didn't kill Santorin, though, so Impact is trying to zone him out, and this is becoming very dangerous.
Impact in trouble. Has to claw out of the way. The Baron is on Santorin! No, he can't get it. It's actually Jensen that secures it. And now going to move down, try and get a kill, but Meteos going to put an end to that. Gets the mark for himself as well.
And this is one of those Cloud9 games where they look better than they can be consistently, because that's another very risky move that Meteos has made, where Santorin could have stolen it, but he also gets rewarded for making that because he cleaned up his mark after Santorin had flashed in the pit. To watch the very start of this fight, though, Kiwi Kid was worried about the threat of Baron. A Fed Kindred with the Mountain Drake can go down. The end of the Rom ultimate takes OQ, which lets Jensen go in, and then Quas teleports in, and it stops the rest of the team from dying, but he has to immediately flash away. And Impact accidentally takes GBM to 80% health because those spells were actually used on Quas, but they splashed through to GBM just to kind of show you how squishy his Anivia is right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell he's got the Archangel stacking up, but he doesn't have the shield yet from the Seraph. Morellonomicon is an awfully squishy Anivia without that Rod of Ages. Starting to really cost him in these fights, as Jensen is not messing around on the damage front. Looks like Rylai's on the way next, but a Baron-empowered C9. Those tier 2 turrets looking very vulnerable. Jensen's going to lead these minions in. GBM going to clean them out as best he can.
If you want to note, Meteos has achieved 8 successful hunts on Kindred. That's actually insane. 22 minutes in, it just adds to their power. I want to see 10, but I feel like the game will end before he can make that happen.
He's got that Trinity Force finish as well, so plenty of damage. Really putting the carry and carry jungler this time around. And NRG just stuck trying to defend what looks like a almost impossible siege to get out of.
And it's a Mountain Drake, Ocean Drake as well, so they can get incredibly strong chip damage in, and if they pull back, they'll start regenning. So this is super hard for NRG to stop, even though they have the Anivia, because it's so early, and because split pressure is also being placed on them. Jensen actually wins the matchup against GBM, so they're sending more to try and stop him, but he's easily taking down a turret in Anivia's face.
Yeah, this is a 2v3 that I think Cloud9 might fancy Pillar in, though. Is he going to try and get some damage down?
So they're trying to run.
They've got Impact, Centaur. No, the ulti's down, and now Jensen might look to turn things around. Powers up the Tides of Blood. Impact Sonya's is at the very end to try and buy more time. They're getting damage done on the bottom side, though. It's just too much commitment there for NRG.
Yeah, but at the same time, their base has just been cracked as the Anivia team. Their turtle is essentially no more. They do get 1 kill, but that's totally fine for C9. And Jensen actually did a bunch of damage. He took about 3 of them down to 20% health. So the snowball will continue for Cloud9. It's just the game's not over quite yet.
No, not yet. And just another blue buff steal. Drake up in a minute. They'll probably take that as well. Jensen, happiest Vlad in the world, gets himself a blue. Going to go back home, spend some money. Rylai's is now done, in case the Vladimir wasn't scary enough.
Yep. Full item threshold. Not much magic resist being built up by NRG. Glad they at least have the Aegis against the double AP composition. That's good. But
a soul point for you, I know.
Yes, there's a game yesterday where Echo Fox refused to build the item. I was very disappointed. Good job, Kiwi Kid. But it is probably too little too late, as C9 has exceptional team fighting, strong split pushing, and a very fed Kindred.
Yep, starting to feel that way. It's level 13 here for Meteos, 2-0-3, but the amount of pressure he has exerted on NRG's map has been just wonderful to watch here this game. Jensen always keeping the wave pushed up, able to play aggressive on the Vlad. And looks like Drake will be the next order of business. They'll pick up a cloud for themselves in about 5 seconds when it spawns. NRG stuck dealing with the bottom lane super minions and just a general map pressure from Cloud9.
Yeah, they'll kill this super quick. Basically as soon as it spawns.
Poor Cloud Drake.
Yeah,
never stood a chance.
Means we'll get no Infernal Drake this game, because that's now the 3rd unique dragon type we've seen spawn. Cloud9 probably doesn't need it to close out this game, though, as they're just going to continue to go. Although Impact, again, is kind of caught. I don't see how he gets out of this one.
Turn Houdini out, does flash. Oh, that's a trap.
Oh,
but
man.
Jensen's in. GBM's like, no, stay out.
I didn't see how he gets out of that one. He did, though. He loses a lot of health and his flash, however, which is unfortunate. But the investment that NRG put into that is actually giving another opening for Cloud9 to take a bunch of damage down.
I think NRG just have to fight, but that's a flash out, actually.
Wow. GBM, he knows he dies if he gets hit by that, so he has to flash.
Yep, and now Impact going back in.
Now he has no flash.
Yep, going all in onto GBM. He's going straight for it. He's not going to go down, but he finally gets egged, and that's Sneaky with another kill. Jensen in the backline doing so much damage on the Vlad. Almost takes the Oki. The ulti tagged him for the Braum. There's the double in from Sneaky, and Jensen just playing up. Cloud9 going to win this game.
Basically, their whole team taking double Nexus turrets. 26 minutes right now, and they're knocking on the Nexus. What a performance by Cloud9, crushing energy in the first game.
Continuing their aggressive streak. They'll pick up what they can here, but the Nexus will fall on Cloud9. Take game number 1.
Yeah, really from start to finish. Some risky plays that had happened for Cloud9. I actually wouldn't say that was the most calculated game, but when all of their greedy plays work, they're going to win really fast. And it's not to say they didn't make some good calculated plays as well, which they did.